Hey, hello everybody. Welcome to the annual What I Wish I Knew webinar panel. My name is Shelby Truxon. I'm the VP of Internship Experience here at the Nonprofit Alliance through our Leading Edge Student Internship Program. So, welcome all of you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that I can introduce our amazing speakers for today. And before I do that, just to give you an overview of what we're going to do today is this is purely a conversation for you all to hear from our nonprofit professionals that are on the call, what they wish they knew when they were in college or when they were interning or when they were just starting out their careers, particularly when it comes to working in the nonprofit sector. And this is important because, we all wish that we had somebody tell us certain things back when we were starting out. And so you all get the chance to do that and to hear from them on that. So let me introduce our speakers. We have Jen Mowry, who is the Senior Account Manager at NNE Marketing. So welcome, Jen. We also have Eddie Kyle, who's the Director of Marketing and Communications here at the Nonprofit Alliance. So welcome, Eddie. And we have SB Birnie, Vice President of Analytics at Avalon Consulting. So welcome, SB. And we are going to go ahead and jump in. Also, as you all know, if you can keep your phones muted during the webinar, that would be appreciated. And what we'll do is we'll open up for questions at the very end. So I'll be posting questions in the chat. Feel free to answer as much as you want throughout in the chat. And then you can hopefully come off mute at the very end to answer questions. Okay. So let's see. Our first topic that I do want to talk about is for our panelists is what you wish you knew about the nonprofit industry or working in the nonprofit sector. And so starting with that, specifically, what do you wish you knew about working for a nonprofit versus working for a for-profit? And so SB, I'm going to start with you.
Sure. I wish I knew that working at a nonprofit to make positive change, that was even an option. I guess I figured nonprofits were just run by volunteers and it wasn't something I could do as a job. I see a lot of nods, right, Jen, Eddie, probably similar. And really, it was my activism that got me on some sort of listserv back when listservs were cool. And they just happened to post jobs. And from there, I kind of got into the nonprofit industry. And more than that, I wish I also realized that nonprofits are really our businesses. They need accountants, they need data analysts, they need project managers, HR professionals, like all the things that a normal, for-profit business would. And then as for the for-profit space, talk about a dearth of knowledge when it came to realizing that there were these nonprofit adjacent companies that exclusively support progressive nonprofits. And then that was something that I could do. So I wish my schooling would have taught me some of that, and that it wasn't just left to happenstance. But fate brought me here, so I can't be too mad at it.
Yes, and agreed. Like, why didn't they tell us this before?
Right?
But we're here. We're here. Jen, why don't you add to that? What do you wish you knew about for-profit versus
I'm
nonprofit?
gonna echo SB and wish I didn't realize how many opportunities there were outside of the actual nonprofits to support their missions. I have never been employed by a nonprofit directly. I've always worked in those adjacent spaces on the agency side or with for profits. But there's so much that I've learned from or while I'm at a for profit that I've been able to apply and support my nonprofit clients.
Yeah, yeah. And Eddie, why don't you gave pretty much ran down the whole list of for this question, but when it comes to myths and misconceptions about working in the nonprofit versus for-profit sector? What do you wish you knew about that?
Quite a bit. And I'll start off by saying that I'll probably be piggybacking some of the things that both SB and Jen both said. But just kind of like started off, I think one of the biggest things that I wish I knew is that there's this myth that nonprofits equal no money, and that's like the farthest from the truth. I think, people just don't realize that the word nonprofit is really just like an umbrella term where a lot of different types of organizations kind of fall under that category. Sure, you do have your volunteer organizations where they may ask for like volunteers to help them run, their programs or help them with fundraising and whatnot. But SB, kind of like you said, nonprofits are actual businesses. Um, and another misconception that kind of goes along with that is if they do pay, that they don't necessarily pay well. I can tell you, as someone that's been in nonprofits basically all of my entire career, that's also kind of far from the truth. Now, some of them don't pay nearly as well as the for-profit industry, but I can tell you, I've been at organizations where C-suite executives can make anywhere between two to $500,000, and the CEOs are making well beyond that as well. That was like a big shocker to me when I worked at one of my previous organizations. So there's definite money and opportunity in working in the nonprofit space there. And then also there's like for some people I've heard over the years that there's like this misconception that nonprofits are kind of like easy and they're not as hard as working in the for-profit space. And I see some head nodding here. And one of the things that I could say about that speak to more on that is a lot of times working in the nonprofit sector, you can be tasked with several different hats. Your job title can be one thing, and you could have 50 million different projects and just your hands in different departments. So you can really keep yourself very busy, which is a good and a bad thing at times. But one good example of that is like when it comes to working like an annual meeting for a particular organization, that gets really busy the few months leading up to an event, where you can be working extra hours in the evenings and, hopefully not, but, it's not uncommon to work the weekend sometimes as well. So, that's one of the things that I really like to share with people in the nonprofit space.
Definitely an ebb and flow of how busy you are at work and maybe when the best time to take a vacation is when it's a little
Yeah.
bit slower.
Exactly. Now you had resonated, I think, with all of us on all of that.
Hmm.
And I feel free. I see all of you in the chat as well. Zaria definitely heard about the lower pay as well as worse benefits to go along with that, which is a misconception and that's a common one. And yeah, the better work-life balance as well. So yeah, definitely agree with that. SB, let's go back to you on what you wish you knew about the different career options that are available in the nonprofit space.
Sure. So full disclosure, I need to be honest. I have never had a grand plan. In interviews, what's your 5-year plan? I'm like, I don't know, man. I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. So really, most of my biggest opportunities came from solving a problem that nobody assigned to me. So I always keep my ears and my eyes open. And if I hear about a pain point someone is having, especially if it's something that I'm really interested in or I know I can help with because of my skill set, I offer to help. And so acting on that and following the kinds of work and the types of work environments that really energize me, that's what have really led me through my career path, through many different roles, and lots of growth throughout my career. So, sort of answer for you.
No, love that. You're very transparent. I appreciate that.
Oh, yeah,
Those people are like,
that
"Oh
too.
yeah, I know exactly. I have this laid out." And you're just like,
I got
I
nothing.
didn't know." No, and that sometimes that works out the best for people. Jen, how about you? What do you wish you knew about the different career options?
I wish that I didn't think. I wish I didn't think that if I made one decision now, everything's going to go exactly to plan. Um, I went to college thinking I was going to be talking about sports all day on TV, and I still talk about sports all day, but it was not for me. I was able to work in the sports world for a little bit, and I'm happy I did. But things I learned in college, I'm using now that I didn't learn or didn't apply when I was working in the sports industry. Um, I also only took one PR class and one class that was focused on nonprofits when I was in college, and now I'm using Excel every day, like every minute of every day,
Hmm.
where I'd never used it in my first job out of college. So I wish I knew that it's okay to change course, and my interests and my passions are going to change.
Yeah, love that. Like it's like none of us really went in a straight line like we
Yeah,
thought we would.
yeah,
It did all of this and then we got to where we needed to be.
yep.
Yeah. How about you, Eddie?
Yeah, this is specifically about just career planning,
Yeah, or career options.
career
What
options.
you
Okay.
can do. Yeah.
Well, for one, I kind of wish that I knew, in general, more about the nonprofit space and the fact that there are millions of jobs in that sector. Pretty much anything that's on the for-profit side, job title wise, can be applied to in the nonprofit side as well. So you need HR people, you need your IT and computer people, you need event professionals, you need the marketing and communications people. So yeah, just about anything is available to for-profits can be applied to the nonprofit space as well. Um, I kind of wish that I would have taken more time, or I kind of wish that my college would have been really better about preparing us about what our options are after college. I went in as a communications major, and even when I selected that, I was still kind of unsure of what I wanted to actually do. I had, went back and forth with different creative things. So I was like, all right, I'll just do communications and figure it out. And back then my school didn't really do a good job of saying, hey, this is what communications professional can do outside of, into the workforce. So I wish that somebody would have told me, it's like when you declare your major and when you're, doing the schoolwork and whatnot, just take a few weeks or a few days out of every week to just take a moment to look at some job descriptions based on the career field that you are pursuing. And then that kind of will give you an idea of like what kind of work is actually out there. What can I see myself, doing beyond college? And then it will give you an eye opener of like, do I really, really foresee myself doing this like after college? And if not, then you'll have a chance to maybe, think about it a little bit further and change your major. And if you do pursue it, then I definitely think that once you start to intern, continue to look at those job descriptions and make sure that you try your hardest to get what to get the experience that you need in the future for when you start going for those first like those first bigger roles.
Love that. And that's good advice. Like start doing your own research. I think we all fell into like, oh, well, this, the school's not telling me to do it, then I don't. But, you realize like, oh, wait, I'm kind of on my own with this. Like I have to do really look into things myself and really try to figure these things out. And they're there to help, but, they really can only do but so much in a way. So, I love that. Yeah, doing that research early on. Um, let's see. So we'll go to the next section. And while might have a little bit of time to answer, I do see a question. We can kind of answer that now. Austin X, besides an organization's tax designation, what do you think the term nonprofit sector signals about a role or an organization? Does anybody want to take a minute to answer that?
I'll go. I think some of it is what all three of us were saying. I think it was the first question. It means, no money. It means it's just volunteers. It also, I think might mean, depending on kind of where your belief set is, it might mean one thing or another. It might mean, the Human Rights Campaign, or it might mean the NRA. So, it's a wide thing. So I think it kind of probably depends on you, Eddie or Jen.
No, I
And
would agree with that. It's since nonprofit, like I said, nonprofit sector is just that's a big umbrella term. And that could be anything from like I've even had to write out a list of this because I was like, I can't really just think off the top of my head, like what is the nonprofit sector? Well, it's stuff like animal shelters, research institutes, associations, which is what I have typically worked for. There's schools, hospitals, libraries. So the term nonprofit really doesn't, give you an idea per se about an organization. It just kind of depends on what category that organization falls under. And then, for instance, if they are like a membership-based organization, then you can expect that there's a lot of professionals and people that are within that organization and their members will be very passionate about said cause or whatever the organization is about.
I think going back to Eddie about researching everything, someone might say they work with nonprofits, someone might say you're going to be working at the nonprofit. There's so many organizations that I think even now I don't realize are considered nonprofits. So just always doing your research, always kind of knowing how the organizations are using the funds that they're taking in is something that I always kind of keep my eye towards.
Yeah, good answers. Love that. And that information is public, public
Yeah.
knowledge. I
Mhm.
think that's what sets us apart too from for profit is we are required to report that information. So great question, Austin. Thank you for that. So we'll move on to the next section about career planning. And SB, I will start with you on what you wish you knew about interning.
Sure. So if you start an internship, don't ghost the company. I maybe did that when I was in college. Whoops. And now, having hired interns, realize that was probably a little bit of a burden on that company. But the lesson here, other than don't do that for real, just don't do that. Be a professional and say you're not coming back for whatever reason. But the lesson is that an internship isn't just about the experience you gain, Eddie asking about what you were saying, kind of test it out and know what your career path wants to be. But it's also a great way to learn what you don't like before committing to it. Hence why I ghosted this place. I think it made like fitness DVDs. No, not yeah, exactly. Not my jam. And so I will say, just so I don't sound like a total tool, is that I did make up for it. So, I may have ghosted my unpaid, no college credit internship. And my first real internship was at the Human Rights Campaign, where I completely worked my butt off. And that's where my career truly started. So that's the other thing is that it's a great way to get your foot in the door.
Love that. Eddie, how about you?
I wish that someone probably would have like taken me aside and been like, you should definitely go for more than one internship. Now, that's basically what I ended up doing. I had one internship. I think I was kind of late. I can't recall if it was my junior year or I think it might have been my senior year actually. So like really late. I wish someone would have told me that it's beneficial to do as many internships as you can, because that just really opens your eyes to different opportunities. One of the biggest things is like it starts to give you actual work experience. So by the time that you graduate, like say if you start interning in your sophomore year, you do maybe one internship per year, and by the time you graduate, you might already have a full year of working experience by that time, which will then set you apart when you start applying for those entry level jobs that want someone with 1 to 3 years of experience. You can, talk about all the projects and the great things that you learn, and it just would really set you apart from all of the thousands of other people that are also entering the workforce at that same time.
Having
So
that,
that would be the biggest thing for me is I wish someone would have encouraged me to do more than one internship and just, start getting as much experience as possible. But lucky for me, it did end up working out. But I think it would have been beneficial to me during that time.
and having that experience in the workforce makes the transition out of school, out of the ebb and flow of going back to school, vacations, and all that jazz makes it a little bit easier to take in. It's not as much of a shock.
Agreed, because it's very different, right?
Yeah.
And it hits you sometimes like, oh, wait, this isn't the same. Yeah. Great. Thank you both for that. And Jen, we'll stick with you. What do you wish you knew about finding a mentor?
I wish I didn't take it as like a formal approach to it. Anybody can be a mentor. Anybody that you can learn from, that you go to as your go-to for asking questions, can be a mentor. And it could be someone that you don't work with every day, but you find yourself like really leaning in and listening to what they have to say. Um, I I think, and this kind of goes into networking too. It doesn't have to be formal. It can just be a conversation that you take something away with. You take something out of it.
So true. And that takes a lot of pressure off. I feel like when it's not, it doesn't, have to have all this structure all the
Doesn't
time.
have the title.
Exactly. Yep. Yep. SB, how about you? What do you wish you knew about finding a mentor?
I mean, yeah, definitely double up on what Jen said. Even though I've been a mentor, including through TNPA, I've never had a formal one, but instead I've collected nuggets of information, pieces of advice, you know, remembered the people who gave me that chance, who gave me autonomy, and noting those behaviors that I've wanted to replicate or those, things that I've learned that have helped me, and also collecting the things, the behaviors that I've seen that I thought I don't like that and I never want to do that. And frankly, I've found those to be just as valuable to make sure I don't kind of go in that direction. And, thinking about this question, really looking back for me, having that collection of several kind of informal mentors over the years has been really, really valuable.
Yeah, no, a good point about the learning what not to do part, because you will pick that up too along the way. And that's not a formal mentorship usually. So Eddie, let's
Mm-hmm.
go back to you. What do you wish you knew about getting your first job?
Getting my first job. That's a good one. Once again, I'll give everyone a little bit of background. Thanks to my one and only internship that I had, it turned into a professional opportunity, a permanent opportunity. So I did that for like my first year and a half. But one thing that I kind of wish I would have knew about my first job is that um, and I think I did a really good job with this, but like just really be a sponge. Because when you're in those entry level roles, people don't expect you to do like super crazy, amazing things. They realize that you are new to this, that you're, ambitious, doing a lot. And that's really your chance to kind of get as much experience as you can and kind of figure things out a little bit. You'll probably be learning a lot of like office culture and just like working with different types of personalities and managing relationships. But it's also your time to kind of figure out if A, you like what you're doing, and B, if there's anything that you are, really just seeking experience wise, and it's probably a really good opportunity to go to your boss or go to someone else on your team, and be like, hey, I really like to get experience with like finance. Can you just like walk me through it? Or, give me a project on that if you have time, because like you may have find yourself having some spare time once you get your projects done. So one thing I kind of wish that I knew is that your first career or your first job out of college does not define the entirety of your career. It's kind of just like, getting your feet wet. A lot of us don't necessarily have, the same titles as we did or the same trajectory as our first job, as far as like the titles go. So, yeah, that will be probably the biggest lesson is that it doesn't necessarily define the future of your career path.
So true. And another way to relieve that pressure. Like this isn't the only decision that you'll make that'll affect the rest of your life necessarily. So yeah, that's good. Jen, how about you? What do you wish you knew about getting your first job?
Keep applying. Um, I I was
Good
in
one.
Don't give up, right?
don't give up.
Yeah.
They're gonna ghost you. You might ghost them after a certain point. Um, I was lucky, like Eddie, my first my first internship turned into a second internship, turned into my first full-time job. Um, and I think I kept with it longer than I might have if I had known sooner that I didn't only need to remain loyal. I wasn't getting the same as I was putting into it, so I wish I knew it was okay to kind of rip the band-aid off and go somewhere else, learn something new sooner. Um,
Yeah.
but I think I learned a lot about working with a lot of different personality types in that first job, which has been invaluable since then.
Yes, so true, so true. SB, how about you?
Yeah, I think somewhat similar. Determination for sure has gotten me where I am today and landed me. I'm going to consider my internship at HRC my first job because it was paid, and so I was like, this is money. It is a job. Um, and the determination there was really throughout the first kind of few steps. I hadn't heard back about the internship. So being like determined, spunky 22-year-old me, I was like, I'm going to walk up to the building and I'm going to see what's what. Well, HRC is in Washington, D.C. And if you're not familiar, in like August, they can have like these total freak torrential downpours that come out of nowhere. I didn't know this. So come up from the metro, no umbrella. I'm soaked. And I'm like, whatever, I'm still gonna go. But I see them all in their staff meeting, and I was like, maybe I shouldn't. And then all of a sudden it breaks, and I'm like hiding under the awning of this little bodega. And this woman walks out and she goes into the bodega. I'm like, this is a sign. So, like a weirdo, I waited for her, and I'm like a drenched puppy. And I was just like, do you know anything about the internship program? And she was like, no, but I work across from the person. Call her, do this. So I did that, called, got an interview, and like 2 days later, I started working. But also, like, I didn't want that internship. All I wanted was a foot in the door because I was like, I'm queer and I want to work at HRC. So, like, whatever, I will lick stamps, which I actually may have done for a part of my internship. And what I did was I just kept my eyes and ears open and saw this position to open up. Like, I know I can do this. I know I don't necessarily want to do this, but my internship's ending. So why not? Did that. Then, when a position opened that I really wanted, monthly sustainers, got that. And that's what really kind of like set me on my path. So stay determined, keep at it, and maybe just walk through a rainstorm and be weird.
That's the best. I'm glad that you shared that story. I think it's yeah, you never know. You got to take chances. So I think that is a prime example of that, and it paid off. Yeah, we'll go to let's end this section with what you all wish you knew about networking and making connections. So we'll go back to you, Eddie, to go first on that. What do you wish you knew about networking?
So the whole "it's who you know" quote that's very popular. Um, that's true to some extent, and I think it's really good to start thinking about your network. And now it doesn't have to be like the super formalized process. You can make it, super simple. Just be, proactive about it. If you meet someone that you work really well with, you have people that you want to keep in touch with, just do something as simple as connecting with them on LinkedIn. That's a really easy way just to keep up with people, to kind of see them grow in their career as well. It also gives you an opportunity to, reach out to them or congratulate them when they get, a new role and whatnot. And you just, keep people, in your memory, and you can kind of be in their memory as well. So, by the time that you need someone, you'll kind of be able to like easily go back and send someone a message and be like, hey, like, do you mind being a work reference for me? Like, I know we, did really good work, 2 years ago or something along those lines. So you'll definitely want to keep in touch with people. And it doesn't have to be, like you have to be buddy buddies or anything like that. You don't have to be besties. I consider myself introverted for the most part. So I'm not always like reaching out to people, but like I do have that list of people that, I keep in touch with over the years, even people from my very first job, going on 14, 15 years ago, like I still keep in touch with them, because like you just never know, where that can help you in the future when it comes for a reference, or even better yet, once you're on the job hunt and you see a organization where you know someone, that can really be helpful because it can kind of get your foot in the door. I've had that a few times where, like an organization has a role that's opened up and then I apply for it. And then, instead of just getting lost in all those applications, you reach out to someone inside directly and be like, hey, I applied for it. And they'll be like, oh, yeah, I know the hiring manager. I'll make sure they see your resume. So there's instances like that where, having connections is really important and beneficial.
Love that, love that. Jen and or SB, whichever one, if you want to briefly share what you wish you do as well about networking.
I think I'm going to build off of SB's Rainy Puppy story as well. If you're, you don't need to reach out to, and you don't need to learn directly from your direct report. You can go to someone else in the organization and say, I have a question. Can I follow you around for a day? Can you tell me what a day in the life looks like? And even if you don't work with them again, if maybe they say no, they don't have the time to do it, but it's still a good foot in the door because maybe later on they move on to a different organization and they might remember that you had the initiative to try to broaden your horizons with learning something new within that organization or a new skill. And I think that kind of in the back of your mind is always a good thing.
Awesome. Good, good. Anything to add, SB?
I mean, I just wish I knew how to like network as an introvert because like networking, as I understood it, brings me absolutely zero joy. I hate it as an introvert whose feet are like firmly planted on the autism spectrum. It's the worst. So I've had to figure out how I do it. And like, I'll just kind of like be a creeper tailgater with like someone I know. And then when someone mentions like Excel or data or sustainers, and I'm like, okay, now I'm going to start building that relationship. And that's really what's worked for me is having, I'm curious by nature. And so being able to engage in conversation that way and build that connection, to the points already mentioned, like, and then later, hey, I'm looking for a job here or whatever, and, have that deeper relationship rather than like speed dating and, piling up business cards and LinkedIn numbers.
Love it. Appreciate the transparency on that too. I think a lot of us are in that introverted category, and it's like, this isn't for me. I gotta find a way that works for me to do this. So yeah, I love the tailgating. I can do that as well. I love that. So we'll little overtime, but we're moving. So I'm gonna go to the section of what you wish you knew about school. And actually, I'll just have all three of you either share what you wish you knew about choosing the right school or major, or share what you wish you knew about going back to school for advanced degrees. And so, Eddie, I'll start with you. If you want to share, actually, I think you could share either one. Which one do you want to talk about? Going choosing the right school or going back to get advanced degrees, whichever.
I'll probably stick with choosing the right school. I don't have an advanced degree. I've thought about it over the years. Just something that's not right for me in the moment. So about choosing the right school, one of the biggest pieces of advice I would give is probably heavily consider the option that's going to be the least financially straining on you because it is easy to get caught up as an 18-year-old to be like, oh, like all these colleges want me. They're so great. I want to go out of state and I want to go to the biggest and best school and not think about that financial burden that you're going to have post graduation. I'll go ahead and be open and honest. I went to an out of state school. I grew up in a region, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, DMV region. And I grew up in Maryland. The school that my parents wanted me to go to was literally around the corner from the high school that I went to. So I'm like, absolutely not. It will feel like I just went to like the 13th grade, like it just right around the corner. Didn't apply for it. I ended up going to a Virginia school, George Mason University. And let's just say that I spent more money than, I probably should have on a 4-year degree. It did end up working out because I did the RA thing, so my housing was paid for. So it still kind of worked out. But still, like, go with the option that's, going to set you up for the best financial um, situation post graduation, because school loans are no joke and they can linger on as, longer than you expect. And I know it's easy to get caught up in just the college experience, but that is something that, real life really gets real. Like once you are graduated and you get that bill every month, it's like, oh man, I'm responsible for paying for this for X amount of years, or how long it ever takes you to pay those off. And then just one more thing about schooling is just kind of go back to choosing your major. Just, do some research and kind of figure out what are the job options post graduation, so you can kind of get an idea of like what kind of work you'll actually be doing. So that's a really big one that I want to stress, is that just kind of get the best understanding that you can about the type of jobs that are available to the major that you are kind of, pursuing.
Yes, very good advice. And I hear you about that 13th grade thing. It's like, no, I'm not going to school around where I grew up if I can help it. SB, how about you? What do you wish you knew about choosing the right school or major? Um,
Yeah, so I have a little bit of a different hot take than Eddie. Eddie, I'm also learning like you do all this research and you're so great, and I'm like, wee, confetti. And I did the same thing with school. I was like, whatever, they gave me a scholarship, I'm not going to have loans, so I did have that. But in terms of a major, I was like, oh, okay, business administration, cool, whatever. But I'm glad I did that because it's so generic. It's like, what did I really learn? I don't know, a bunch of stuff I'm never like don't really use like in the real world now. And so that's my real hot take, is that unless you're going to be like a lawyer or a zoologist, your major does not define you. One of the most brilliant software developers I know was an English major, and he like plays an electric cello. So like what? So what what I learned, it was more learning how to learn rather than what I learned throughout school. That was the important thing. And this might not be a shared opinion, but also, jobs that say we require that you have a college degree. I have a lot of feelings about that. I think that's junk. I think that's trash. I think that's very privileged. Again, unless you're going to be like a doctor, then yes, like please make sure they have a medical degree. But not everyone has the privilege, has the ability to attend college. So that's also just something, as you're looking at things, if they're just like, we want you to have a college degree just for funsies, depending on like where your heart lies, like that's just one of those pieces of data to collect, as you're looking at that job posting. But yeah, and in terms of the school, of all of the people I have hired and interviewed over the years, I can maybe remember one school, and that's because it was one that I was familiar with because it was near my hometown. I don't know if anyone went to Harvard. I don't care. I just want to make sure you're cool and you're going to be good at the job.
Love that. And I'm noticing that's starting to change. A lot of employers are removing that degree requirement. So yeah, yeah, very good point.
As long as doctor job descriptions don't, I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I need. I'm gonna need you to go to school for that before
Yeah.
you operate on me.
Cool.
Yes. Jen, how about you? Why don't you share what you wish you knew about, specifically about the advanced degree part, if you can, on
Yeah,
that part.
so I took this from how, like, what am I going to learn? What am I going to apply to the real world, like real working world? And not everyone's great at classroom learning. They're not great at test taking. So that doesn't always apply to real life. Some people are more hands-on learners. So you learn how to become a good employee and a good coworker by working. You can't learn that in a classroom. Um, and that could be in all sorts of different ways, like just heads down, doing the work, asking questions. It's take joining webinars like this one. It's going to conferences. It's where you can pick something else up. I've thought about going back to school. I don't think I'll, at this point, I don't think I'll learn anything in a classroom that I can't learn from someone either at my agency that we're working with, or someone that I'll meet at a conference. Um, and then on top of that, Eddie, like, can I afford to go back to school right now? Like, I'm still paying off my student loans, like, for my undergrad degree. So, like, that kind of weighs the decision as well. But there's always classes and certifications that you can take that's more of like a short term situation that's not as it's not as big of a commitment as going back to school.
Yeah. Love that. Very true. And I could say, like, for me, I didn't go back right away. But my strategy, especially on the financial side, was like, I said, I'll go back once I know what I want to do, have a better idea of what I want to do, because I had no clue. And then also, two, if my employer will pay for it. And I was able to get a job somewhere, and that was one of my questions when I'm interviewing, like, do you pay for, to get masters or extra degrees? And they said yes. I said, okay, that I'll go back now. So, yeah, there's a way to strategize and do it in a way that fits for, your plans. So yeah, thank you all for that. So before we go into the last section, now would be a great time for all of you to post any questions you have into the chat, and then we're going to open up the floor to answer your questions. So post away if you haven't already. And we're probably going to try to move a little bit quickly. So I will, advise if you keep your responses somewhat short, for this section, just so we can get to the Q&A part of it as well. Okay, so the last section is, what do you wish you knew about life after school? So we'll start with you, Jen, on what do you wish you knew about making and spending money?
That it's okay to say no to making plans, and it might not be big plans. It could just be, no, I can't do that today, or it's not in the cards this week. Um, and that's with just like maybe going out with your friends for dinner or going on a weekend away, and setting two different goals, like short term and long term goals, was helpful in prioritizing when and where I was spending my money, and kind of getting like into a rhythm with it too. So when my student loan came in, I can take care of that bill, and making sure that I was okay when my friends couldn't or wouldn't go out or do something that I wanted to do. Everyone's kind of in a different boat. So, kind of having that understanding, with priorities, regarding spending, regarding different paths is always great.
Love that. Yes, don't give in to the pressure. Know your
It's
know
hard.
your
It's
budget.
hard.
It's very
It's
hard.
really hard.
Especially you're looking at social media like, oh, they went on vacation. I need to, yeah. How about you, SB? What do you wish you knew about making and spending money?
Well, when I was younger, the only social media was my favorite platform, MySpace, and there wasn't a lot of that. So I was good. I didn't have any FOMO. I still don't. But I will say lifestyle inflation is real, and every raise feels like a permission slip to spend more. So I remember only being able to afford like Progresso soup when it was on sale at CVS, and that was like when I ate good. So I'm lucky that I have that in mind. And so I have instilled in me that I try to save a portion of my raises, before I get used to a bigger paycheck. I look for employers who have a 401k, ideally ones who have a match. And I will say, and you'll probably hear this where you work too, but it's real. Like, just start contributing right away. Even if it's just like a little tiny bit, you get used to it. Each raise, try to bump it up a little bit more because that will add up over time. And Shelby, you were saying, like, I asked my employer, will you pay for my school? Like, when you're applying for places, think about stuff like that and ask about the entire benefits package, and not don't focus exclusively on the salary, although certainly important. So a lot more on there, but I know we're crunching for time.
Yeah, no, that's all good stuff. Good stuff. Eddie, how about you? Oh, your sound is out, Eddie, but you're not on mute. No, you maybe need to leave and come back. No, still can't hear you.
I think
Okay.
yes.
Oh, wait,
Oh, there you are.
there you are.
All right. I
You
don't
had
know
to
what
just lose
happened, but
hope. You're back.
okay.
You're back.
All right. No, I'm probably going to piggyback on some of what Jen and SB said, but one frame of mind is to saying that you can't afford something does not equate that you are broke. It just means that your financial priorities are already set up for, said week, said month. So like, don't feel bad if, someone like, yeah, kind of like SB, what you said, somebody invites you to a trip or to an event and be like, this is really not in the plans. I can't afford that. If someone has anything to say about that, just let it be because you have your own, priorities, financial priorities to worry about. And as long as you're doing what you need to do to set yourself up financially, then stay on that track. And then once again, the biggest thing for me is I wish somebody would have told me sooner to really pay attention to 401ks and Roth IRAs. Luckily I always contributed, but it was something that I really didn't care about or like pay attention to until like later on in life. And it's just like, oh, well, I'm kind of glad that I did set this up because this number is looking halfway decent. And, I wanted to look, a certain way when I hit 65. So start small, even if it's just like $10 a month or something like that, just contribute something to those, retirement plans because they will be very important, down the line. And that compound interest is a thing. And you'll be so much more happier that you started early on. So, yeah, that's what I would contribute.
Yes, all very true and very good advice. All right, so we're going to have this will be the last question for you all, and then we'll open up to you all, the students, for questions. So the last one, what do you wish you knew about making mistakes and setbacks? So we'll start with you, Jen.
That it's okay. I wish I knew that it was gonna happen. And I had really great onboarding, I had really great training, and I still wasn't 100% ready to go. I didn't have all the answers. Um, and it was kind of a big pill to swallow that I wasn't gonna be great right out the get-go. Um, I had a really like good time in school getting grades, so not being able to like hit my own expectation was really, really hard. Um, but I did learn that I had really good teammates, and even the people that weren't on my direct team were willing to make sure that I did get what I need to do my job well and continue learning, which again, it's hard to ask for help. It's hard to say, I don't know. Can someone get me to the next step?
Yeah, yeah, and it makes a huge difference who you're working with.
Yeah.
And finding those advocates and those supporters is very
And it kind of
important.
goes back to like the mentors, like people that
Yeah.
you seek out that you can rely on. Finding them early and kind of leaning into that is definitely something I wish I knew I was going to need.
Yeah, exactly. Very good. SB, how about you?
Sure. Well, the my mindset I'm in these days is like I freaking love making mistakes. I make them all the time, and I learn so much because of it. And sometimes it's like I learned how to not do this thing. Sometimes I learned how to do something else entirely. And I really treat it as that learning opportunity. And I can tell you, boy howdy, I have made some doozies throughout my career. What I wish I knew early on is that even though it feels so devastating and career ending, like I remember one that I was like, oh my, am I gonna have to pack my box of like goodies and like this is it? What I didn't know is that I will think about that mistake more than anyone else. And I can still remember it. I'm having a like bodily reaction just thinking about this one thing from May of 2006. And like everyone else forgot about it within a week, if not by the end of the week. So that's the biggest thing I think to take away is like it will suck, it will feel terrible, but like you're probably good unless you do something like really really bad. But like for the most part, our mistakes, everyone makes them, and that's the other thing to keep in mind. We all make them, we all mess up, so just be cool.
Love that. Eddie, how about you?
Yeah, no, mistakes and setbacks are inevitable. And the biggest thing to know is that they don't define who you are. They don't define your future, your career path, or any of that. And basically, if you aren't making some type of mistakes, you probably aren't working hard enough or like growing to be able to do that. So that's something that's, really important to kind of keep in mind. Setbacks are kind of inevitable. Like things will happen, things are out of your control. And the best thing you can do is just learn from that experience and just kind of keep pushing forward. As long as you get something out of the experience, then that's a really good way to kind of go about your future and just moving forward. And just a quick story, SB, being in the Marcom space, my job is very visual. One time I had to work on this email and it was about an event that was coming up. I sent the email out, had 5 people look at it. No one caught the mistake. Sent the email to 20,000 people. So it's already, high anxiety doing this. And the email had the wrong date for the event in it. So I'm like freaking
Oh,
out. And I was like, what do we do? We just sent this out to all of our members, like this big list, 20,000 people. And an older colleague at the time, like, kind of came over to me. She's like, look, we're not saving babies. Like, people will be okay. We'll send out a correction. And that's kind of like a quote that I live by to this day. Unless you're a doctor and saving babies, like, yeah, that's important. But if not, if you're working like a regular 9 to 5 type job, you're gonna have to expect mistakes to happen. And once again, people will forget, people will move on, and it's not the biggest deal in the world.
Yeah, love it. Yes, I've definitely had those type of things happen. And yeah, again, thankful for our coworkers who can kind of like be like, it's okay, like we'll fix it kind of thing. Awesome, awesome. Well, let's jump to questions. I did see some questions in the chat. If you're able to come off mute, even better if you can turn your camera on, that would be great as well, so we can see your lovely face. But we'll start with Zaria. Are you able to come off of mute, Zaria?
Hello.
hi.
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 I asked two questions. The first was, what do you think are the most important traits in someone who wants to work for a nonprofit? And then the second one is, how do you align your passions with the reality of your job? Like, many nonprofits focus on humane work or maybe around like animal conservation or whatnot. So how do you align like the passion that drew you to your specific nonprofit with the reality of working in that job?
Awesome. Anyone want to jump in on that?
I can jump in and kind of give my perspective. A very important trait for someone that wants to get into a nonprofit or work in that space is to have a really good openness to wear several hats. That tends to be like a repeat thing in a lot of places. Sometimes they can be understaffed in some sense, some situations it can be underfunded. And just kind of like go in with an open mind that you may, have your one job, your one focus, but at the same time, you may need to step in and, like help do some review for like research or some event copy or like a news publication or something along those lines. So just being really open to working and wearing different hats. No, when it comes to aligning passions with the reality of your job, I don't always find that to be super easy. If I were to like follow my true passions, like cars and cameras and photography and whatnot, then I would only find myself working at organizations that are about those things. Maybe that'll happen in the future. But for the time being, like I've worked at, different organizations where they have a lot of passionate people that are already in it. So just kind of like being able to do projects and things that I personally like working on, just kind of like instill it into my work. Go to my boss and be like, hey, like, for instance, social media, like if there's some cool social media things that I'm doing on a personal side, I can like kind of incorporate it into a job and be like, hey, I know this is kind of like working, outside of work. I think it could work for us. And kind of like being able to do things that way and kind of like bring your passions into your job. So that's kind of like one way that I think you can kind of like instill your passions into work if you don't necessarily work at a place that you're 100% passionate about.
Love that. Did anyone else want to jump in? Jen, I thought you were going to say
Yeah.
something too.
I think having an open mind, knowing that you're gonna get pulled in a different direction, whether you're working at a nonprofit or with nonprofits. Like if you're an agency, if you're production, any of the millions of different touch points that nonprofits have, knowing that there's something else going on that's outside of you is really important, and kind of taking bits and pieces of that in. Um, I always go back to like in sports, you wanted to be the coachable kid. So you want to be able to like take things in, learn, be open to it, not taking everything as a critique on you. It's it's still work. That's not all we're about, but
Yeah. Awesome. Hopefully that answered your question, Zaria. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. So we'll move to Rose. Are you able to come off mute? There.
Oh,
Yes.
yes,
Hi,
I am.
Rose.
Hi. I'm a couple of decades into my career, but I'm still just curious. What is the best job benefit you have experienced so far? If possible, outside of 401k matches, degree stipends, and generous PTO, because I'm familiar with those. But wondering as you've gone from job to job or worked at different nonprofits or for-profits, what you feel like the best benefit, maybe an unexpected one, would you value or maybe suggest for people to look out for?
Good one. Anyone want to jump in?
I have two kind of goofy ones, which Rose, I think you'll appreciate. One
Always.
was I've known Rose for forever, for those of you who weren't here earlier. One was called paternity leave, which was, I forget, you got like 1 or 2 days off when you adopted a shelter animal. So that was awesome. I love animals and, loved being able to do that. And then other ones are ones that like I don't necessarily use, but like we have one where at Avalon where it's like a weekly coffee benefit where it started during COVID to support local coffee shops and make sure that they stayed in business. And like I'm very particular about my coffee, so like I still make mine every morning and I have yet to use it. But I love that it's there. I love the meaning behind it. And I know a lot of my workmates are totally into it and get their like super duper, chai soy dirty latte or whatever. So like I'm happy for them, but like for me, it's more like the meaning behind it. And I just like the weird goofiness of it of like, that's rad.
That is cool. I love the paternity. That's so cute.
I think that needs to be more of a thing across the board. Like,
I
that's
wish.
genius. I can jump in and answer that question too. So I don't necessarily per se have a favorite place in particular that I've worked for. I think I'm on association number 4 or 5 at this point. So throughout the years, I've, hopped around a little bit. The longest stint I've done is about 4.5 years at one particular place. And they all have their different personalities and different, benefits and of course, pay and whatnot and opportunities. One of the biggest benefits or one of the coolest ones that I've ever received was a work from home stipend. And it was pretty much, my organization went fully remote at one point. And they realized, we're using our own electricity, we're using our own cell phones. So they gave us a monthly stipend to just, offset some of the costs. And the stipend that they gave us, it covered everything that I was using plus more. So it was kind of like receiving bonus pay at the end of it. So that was really cool. And then one really good one to look out for is professional development costs. Shelby, you kind of mentioned that yourself. Um, it's really important to like not get caught up in your everyday work for like eternity because it's really good to keep your professional development in the forefront because you can easily get caught up in just doing your everyday stuff and like not, your growth can kind of stagnate. So if any of the organizations that you're like seeking or working for has an opportunity to like, hey, we'll pay for you to go to this conference for 2 days to kind of just dive in and learn, you should really heavily consider going to an organization to offer something like that.
Awesome.
I think a really, it's not a quantitative benefit, it's a qualitative benefit, is making sure that the culture supports you, whether that's in, I'm getting a new dog at the end of the month, so like that couple of days would be awesome. Works out, it's a long weekend when we get it. Um, but they're gonna support your growth. They're gonna support you if you make a mistake. They're gonna have your back. They're gonna protect your work-life balance. And I know that's like a buzzword, but when an organization prioritizes their people, that makes everything a lot easier to work for them, and it makes it a lot easier to log on, knowing that you have the support at all levels.
Love that. Love the mix of qualitative and
Yes,
quantitative
we appreciate
benefits
those
there.
statements.
Yes. Yes, and to answer your other question about is unlimited PTO real, I think it depends on the person. I think, if you're someone who needs a lot of time to travel or whatever, then yeah, you're gonna love it. And if you're somebody who's just like you take off here and there, you might not really see the difference. I've appreciated it though, because I've talked to other people who work like, in different sectors and they're just like, oh, I got to use this time up, or I don't have enough. I couldn't take off because I didn't have it. And then I'm like, oh, well, mine's unlimited. And they're like, oh my gosh, so I think it's great. I do
I'll,
personally.
I'll Shelby, I'll piggyback off that too. It kind of like takes some of the stressors away because I've been at places where it's like, oh, I have to use 10 days in a month, and then that becomes a problem because it's like, why are you trying to take off every Friday of the month type of thing? And
Yeah.
if you have a like unlimited PTO situation, it can kind of be like, well, I can just take off here and there, and then if I need to take off more time, it's not a big deal. Like I'm not thinking about this clock or this timeline if I have to travel by this date type of thing. So yeah, I find it pretty positive.
Yeah. Takes a lot of pressure on that pressure again. Relieves the pressure. All right, everybody. Well, we are at time, a little bit over, but it's great conversation. I wish we could go even longer. Y'all had a lot of great insight on everything. So, we will close it out. So I want to thank everybody for attending. We are recording this and we'll make sure everybody gets the recording. And thank you to all of our speakers. It was wonderful conversation. Maybe we'll get to have another conversation soon with each other. So thanks everybody, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank
Yeah, it's great.
you.
Bye.